Hi, Ashley. Welcome to our podcast. We're very excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you, Rishi, for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, the pleasure is ours. I mean, we've been watching your videos on social media, and it's such an exciting time, in fact, for us to be able to meet you, because I was just saying before how we've been on our own journey of, pushing happiness, promoting happiness in our schools, in our world. And so just looking and watching what you're doing is just, so mind-blowing, and it means a lot to us. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
So before we start, I just wanted to ask you, what led you to this? I mean, you're a professional coach, life coach. You talk a lot about happiness, how to beat anxiety and stress. Did you always think that this is what you were going to do?
Far from it, Rishi, far from it. My story is quite interesting. I was born and grew up in Mauritius. Mm-hmm. I went to school in Mauritius. I actually left school when I was 16 years old. I didn't complete school. I was what you would call a lost and angry teenager. I had no directions for life, growing up without a father figure, even though my mom is an incredible woman who held both roles as the mom and the father. I didn't really have that guidance of, thinking about my future, who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. I didn't even know that I had control over my life. I was just going with the flow of things and, not really taking responsibility for who I was in my life. I had 16, 17-year-olds. And then we decided to immigrate to South Africa, to Cape Town, in 2019. And that is when I came across various pieces of information that got me to really think deeply about myself, about the nature of reality and the nature of this world and my role in it. And that is when I really discovered my ability to not only create the reality I preferred, but to have a significant impact on my own happiness, on my own direction in my life. And subsequently, that realization really fueled the real passion and desire to share that with people I encountered around me. And that was in 2010, so around 13 years ago now. And so I studied practical philosophy in Cape Town. I studied metaphysics, which is the art of knowing and being. And I also studied entrepreneurship. I'm really passionate about business and the ability to create positive impact through the art of business and entrepreneurship. And so that's really what's gotten me to this point. I was really fueled and passionate to share this knowledge I discovered with others, especially my family and my peers. They didn't always listen to me. And in fact, at first I was, branded many things, and that's okay, because this is not something that we're used to hearing in our world today, that you can create your own happiness, you can really create the life that you desire, and you have the power to do all of that based on your mindsets and the actions you take every day. They seem quite simple, and so I really wanted to share these ideas that I've discovered with my family and the world around me, and so I did, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity of waking up every day and doing exactly just that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So talk a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind, about the role of personal development that
Sure.
you do in your everyday life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say the idea of personal development is an interesting one that we don't often hear about. We know it's there, but we don't really investigate it. Oftentimes we think of personal development as, well, most could think of it as, the fact that they're doing something wrong and they need to do something good. But it has nothing to do with that. It really has everything to do with increasing the quality of our lives. And by doing so, we naturally increase the quality of the lives of everyone around us. I really believe that we should always lead by example, and that everything that we do has a ripple effect. And so the role of personal development, I think, is significant in having the ability to create a more peaceful world around us by taking on the role of developing ourselves and to become the best humans and the best versions of ourselves that we can be. So I think that the role of personal development has a significant impact in creating a better world for all of us.
And how does that tie into inner happiness? Is happiness the ultimate goal to pursue by each and every one of us?
So why do we do what we do? Ultimately, we don't often ask ourselves this question, but we do what we do so that we can be happy. People, work long hours to make money in order to be happy. So they believe that they can get that in order to, get their happiness by either getting the house, getting the car, or getting the experiences, which sure is important and is a part of life. However, I've really realized that inner happiness comes way before all of that.
Yeah.
You can create your own happiness before even having anything in your outside reality that reflects that. And so to me, the real core of why we are all here as human beings, our purpose here, is to simply just be who we are, because we are all unique. And it's by really having the ability and the courage to embody who we truly are inside that we can really taste this inner happiness that we all have. It's a natural facet of every single human beings. We all carry that inner happiness. And if some people watching this right now don't really feel this inner happiness, it's simply that it's simply clouded. It's just like a still lake. If we throw a rock, there'll be ripples, we won't see it. But if we calm the lake down through various techniques and tools such as meditation and exercise, we can start to taste this inner happiness, and it becomes quite addictive.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
but am I right in understanding that you think that inner happiness is always there inside us?
Of course.
It's part of being a human being.
It's a natural part of who we are.
So then it gets clouded by different
does.
things and you don't see it. So let's say if you're going through anxiety or depression, it clouds the inner happiness, but then it's about trying to get back to it.
And that's where the role of personal development comes in.
Okay.
Because if we can really use the tools and resources that are available to us through personal development, such as meditation, positive inquiry, we really start to clear away all of the things that cloud our own inner joy. Because joy, as I really believe, is an inherent part of being a human being.
What would you define happiness as in that light then? Because I'm hearing, wow, it's actually the way that you're speaking about it is so different to other people that we've had on the show before. So would you mind
Yes, with
giving
pleasure.
us your definition of happiness?
With absolute pleasure. Like I said, my ultimate definition of happiness is waking up, having the opportunity of being who you are, and going to bed knowing that you were who you were meant to be for that day. Waking up grateful and going to bed thankful. That is my definition of happiness. And again, the more we cultivate inner happiness, the more we are able to actually deal with the challenges that arise in everyday life, because a lot of us base our happiness on circumstances that happen around us. But if we can really base our happiness on who we are and on knowing that we're always just doing our best and that is enough, then circumstances will arise that will be challenging, yes, but we'll have more resilience and more energy to actually deal with them, which also then contributes to more happiness. Because we know we're always doing our best. Happiness for me is not judging yourself negatively. You should have done this, you should have done that, you're not the person you're meant to be. It's just really taking a step back, relaxing, taking a deep breath, and recognizing you've always done your best. You will always do your best. And it's simply about appreciating that and digging deeper and removing all the cloud that doesn't enable us to actually taste that inner happiness.
I love that. I was just thinking recently about generations, because Rishi and I are getting into the older generation as the younger ones are coming up. I think that they are a little bit better than we are in terms of negative self-talk and things. Like I think that certainly my parents' generation, I don't know how it was for your parents as well, but I definitely sensed that there was this real like that they couldn't be happy unless they pleased other people, or that they were brought up to think that this is a certain thing that they need to achieve to get this happiness.
Or maybe it was also the fact that, before you mentioned that happiness is what we do, we do to be able to buy a car, to be able to enjoy. But it got me thinking, back then in those generation, and partly maybe our generation, is also this feeling that you need to work to be able to fend for your family. It's not so much like I want my family to be so happy, but it's like survival mode. You need to work to be able to set your children up, for their future, to provide. And so it's not always you do the things that make you happy, but because you feel like you need to achieve a goal. Is that what you were trying to say?
Yeah. Yes.
So that's a great question. And I think that ties into the evolution of the human race and our evolution here on Earth. Because back then, let's say in the 30s or the 40s or 50s, we were totally in survival mode. It was the beginning of the industrial age, and we needed to work in order to get the machine going, which is, the world as it was back then. And then, we just came out of the Second World War. That's mainly speaking about our parents' generation. And so the mindset back then was very different to the mindset it is now with, the advent of technology. Life is becoming easier and easier, which of course has its positive and its negative connotations to it. But I believe that back then, our parents' generation, it was a little bit harder to really actually sit down and ponder about life and happiness, because it was really action-orientated, go, 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 survive, 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 the threat of war, the threat of survival, whereas now we're moving from an era of going from survival to thriving, based on all the tools and resources that are available to us. today. So I think that's where the difference was. But yes, I agree with you. I think that on our parents' generation, the mindset is quite different. And, that mindset, I'm not going to say it's impossible to change, but it becomes quite difficult. The more you're really into it, the more that becomes your reality, the more solid it becomes. It's just like a rock that becomes harder to break. Yeah. But it's not impossible. It totally is possible.
So can we just talk a bit about the clouds that are effectively clouding that inner happiness? What are some of the most typical that you've encountered?
Well, for me, I refer to the cloud as our limiting belief systems. So I have a theory which goes like, our belief systems create everything we experience. However, our belief systems lie in our subconscious mind. It's not something we tap into every day. We have our everyday conscious mind, what I'm going to make for dinner, must I go pick up the kids, what am I wearing later? That's our everyday conscious mind. But then we have a deeper part of ourselves. That's where our inner wisdom lies, but that's also where our inner core beliefs lie. And our beliefs inform our reality, because if we believe something to be true about ourselves in relation to a particular circumstance, that generates then an emotion, which to me is energy in motion. And so when we feel a particular emotion that's based on the belief, that then generates a thought, which leads to an action. Those four together is what creates our world, individually, our individual world. And so if we can really go down to the belief level and understand why we believe what we believe, every day, Rishi and Sharon, every day we get out of our house, we change clothes, we shower. But we don't ever do that about our beliefs. We never question ourselves why we believe what we believe. And most of us believe what we believe because it was handed down to us by our parents, our teachers, school, society, laws, regulations. But we never really get to question why we chose to take on these beliefs. We don't even know that we can choose our beliefs, that we can change them. And so really all the work that I do as a professional coach is enabling people to, by themselves, change their own beliefs from negative beliefs to positive beliefs. Because if we have negative beliefs, that generates negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative actions based on fear. If we have positive belief systems, that generates resilience, positive emotions, positive thoughts, and positive actions, which, actions is what creates this world. It has a ripple effect. We all say that, of course, we can't control what happens outside of us, but we can totally control how we respond to what happens outside of us. And that is where the difference is made for me.
Just playing devil's advocate here.
Yes, please.
So I normally do. We're talking about positive and negative thoughts, positive and negative actions.
Yes.
But aren't those thoughts part of who we are? I mean, so if we're trying to be authentic, isn't there a need to embrace the person who we are with our negatives and positive, obviously?
Absolutely, Rishi. You cannot go into a restaurant and change the menu before you own it. You need to purchase the restaurant so you can change the menu. It's the same thing for our negative beliefs and negative emotions, and positive beliefs and positive emotion. We need to own them. We need to embrace it. We must not run away from it. If we run away from it, and if we run away from it, we cannot change it because we're not owning it, we're not aware of it. So the only way to change it is to be aware of it. And why change it? Well, it's for a simple reason. It's not to say that negativity is bad and positivity is good. There are two functions of this, two properties of this universe. Negativity, what it does, it separates, it breaks things apart. That's its function. Positivity, it unites and brings things together. So when we recognize that, and when we choose to work with a positively aligned approach, we bring things together, we unite things together, which drives happiness as well. When things break and fall apart, that's when we feel sadness and frustration. I'm not saying that negativity doesn't have a place, it totally does. Sometimes we need things to break apart before we can rebuild them. So everything has its purpose. It's not about devaluing anything, it's actually about embracing everything, because if we don't embrace anything, we cannot change anything.
So let's just take a very concrete example.
Yes.
Let's say you're stuck in traffic and you need to get somewhere in a specific time. And I mean, I'm not talking about being mad or what's the term? Like having car rage. Road rage, sorry.
But being stressed.
But stress. At that point in time, can you actually be happy?
Yes.
How?
Great question. Well, first of all, you must recognize that you must go through a process of self-inquiry. Okay, I'm currently stuck in traffic. Okay, it's 9:45, I need to be there at 10, it will take me 3 minutes. I most likely will be 5 minutes behind schedule. Most of us will not go beyond that, of saying, okay, if I'm 5 minutes beyond schedule, it's bad. We immediately label it as bad, as a negative thing. And so that's what we feel. We feel the stress of it. But if in that moment we realize, look, this is the circumstance I'm in. I cannot do anything to control this. This is where I'm at. I will get there 5 minutes late, so what? It is what it is. Let me appreciate where I'm at. Let me look around the window. If I'm not maybe being in this traffic, I'm seeing someone walk down the street that reminds me of something that I forgot to do that, if we're in that state of being, then we can actually use it positively. I believe that every single circumstance that arises serves double duty. It's like two sides of the same coin. It can serve us positively, it can serve us negatively. Most of us just don't know that it can. We talk about the silver lining. That's what it is. When we find ourselves in a perceivingly negative situation, we can always turn it around by asking ourselves the simple question: if this was to serve me, if this was happening for a positive reason, what would it be? Okay. And that's when it comes up to our mind, and then we can actually, maybe we don't believe it immediately or actually feel it, but with practice, that's when it really comes through. I've had many situations in my life where most of the time it would appear to be very negative, but when I ask myself this question, I really look deeply into it, it turns out that, a few months later, I look back and I'm like, thank God this happened. Like, I would never be where I'm at now if this didn't happen, if I didn't respond to it in that way. And, so everything serves a purpose.
Yeah.
That's actually really profound, and I love that. I've never thought about that there is a purpose to negativity. I always thought that there's a way of looking at the silver lining, but I never thought about that. That's really amazing. Do you have other kind of quick turnabouts for people to put into practice, say mood lifters or that kind of thing? I know that you do a lot of free work which is accessible to everyone. You do some really amazing, like very affordable short courses and things like that to help people. And I was wondering if there's any tips that you can give people?
So yes, I think that a lot of us experience stress, and that's one of the things that most of us deal with on a day-to-day basis. Stress is not a bad thing. We needed stress back then when we were cavemen in order to escape the danger. Yeah. That's why it's there. The fight or flight. All right. However, nowadays we don't have lions chasing us. And so the stress that we feel, we haven't been taught to deal with it effectively. And what stress does, it releases a hormone called cortisol. And so when we experience cortisol for a short amount of time, meaning stress for a short amount of time, that's no problem. However, most of us hold on to it for way too long. We hold on to it for hours, for days, weeks, months, years. What that does is it creates a surplus of cortisol in our body, and that's what creates 90% or more of the medical complications we have. And I'm not a medical doctor. I could be saying that, this is based on my own research. Don't take my word for it. But from what I've understood is that a high degree of cortisol in our body contributes to depression, high blood pressure, headaches, and various other diseases that we don't prefer. So one technique that I like to share with my clients and in my courses is a breath technique, which is called the box breathing technique. Whenever we find ourselves in a stressful situation in traffic, for example, one way to turn that around is to first of all neutralize the emotion. We can't just go from straight being negative into, oh, I'm happy, and because that would not be authentic. What we want to do is actually neutralize the emotion by using our breath. And so what I like to teach my clients is that they can breathe in for 5 seconds and they draw with their hand a box. They breathe in for 5 seconds, they hold it for 5 seconds, they breathe out for 5 seconds, and they hold it for 5 seconds. And they do that 3 or 4 times, and naturally that will calm our nervous system, it will calm the release of cortisol. And then what I like to tell my clients is that focus on something that brings you joy and something that you're grateful for. The fact that you're in a car, that you have petrol in your car, clothes on your body, kids at home, healthy life, all of those things then releases a hormone we call dopamine. So it's the ability to manage and balance the difference between dopamine and cortisol in our bodies from a chemical point of view. So that's how we can really use our mind. That's how powerful we are, to use our minds in order to really neutralize situations and turn it around into positive circumstances.
So it's a natural drug release, because dopamine is actually a drug.
It is, yeah.
In antidepressants.
It is, but we feel it every day. That's our motivational mechanism is through the release of dopamine. Right now, we're all feeling dopamine because we're all very happy. We're here, we're having an interview. It's really phenomenal. And the same is true for when we experience a stressful situation. Then our body releases cortisol.
Okay.
Yeah.
So breathing in and out and doing the box exercise, I think that sounds great. But what about people that feel like their stressor is actually still there?
Sure.
Let's say they are in a bad relationship, or they're in a workplace where their boss is not, treating them well, or, something which is like ongoing, and that's the source of stress for them.
Great question. Then they need to address it. They mustn't just shy away. We often just put our hands in the sand, our heads in the sand. because we may not believe that we have the ability to change the situation, but we always do. It's always in our hands. If you have a bad boss at work, change work. Find something else. Like, this is your value, this is your life, this is where you spend most of your time. Why would you put up with that? Why would you choose to put up with that?
Or talk to the boss first before you...
Of course. Well, I'm guessing that they would have,
Okay.
I mean,
Sure.
again, that's something I also work with. I'm a corporate trainer, so I deal with managers and leaders and all of that. And so, the circumstance you're in is always temporary. It's never permanent.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, knowing that helps because a lot of times when we're stuck in those situations, we may think this is forever. And that's how it feels anyways, even though we know it's not. We really need to understand that we have the ability to change all of our situations always, even if it takes time, even if it's potentially sometimes challenging and stressful. That's what grows us, and that's when we can really drive ourselves into a reality that we prefer. So if you're in a bad relationship, and you've done your best to really deal with that relationship and have open communication and try to change it and it's still not changing, then you need to own that and do something for yourself that will enable you to move into a relationship that maybe reflects your values rather than staying in the one that you're currently in out of comfort or out of fear. That, we're always afraid that the worst that we have here, we could find worse somewhere else. But it's never like that, The worst that we're in right now is there to teach us something, and if we can open ourselves up to that and really go forth in a positive mindset and change it, there is no doubt that your situation will improve. That's just how it works.
But then there's also those relationships that are permanent. I mean, you can't just get out of it. You can't get out of being a father or a mother, to your child. Even if it's a difficult situation,
of course.
You can't get out of, being a brother or sister to someone else because they are permanent.
You can't get out of it, but if it really is toxic, then it's actually not serving anybody for you to be in it.
Okay.
And by in it, I mean you giving your energy to that, you feeding your energy to that. Maybe it'd be wise to simply turn around and open more space, have more space in between that relationship, and then maybe with the space, that's when new insights can come up that will eventually benefit the relationship positively in the long run, but staying stuck somewhere that's not working and thinking that going somewhere else is going to be worse, that's the belief that always blocks us in place.
Ashley, have you ever coached people who have a situation that they want to get out of, but they are so afraid to have the confrontation?
Of course.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because I think like for me personally, peace is high on my list of, life goals. Like I hate discord and disharmony, and I absolutely hate it if ever Rishi and I are arguing about stuff, but doesn't stop us from arguing because we're married and that's how you do it. But the thing is that I just need, I find that I have this ridiculously high need for peace, and it does prevent me from having, not him because
Sure.
but
I'm the
other
complete
people.
opposite. I probably do it a bit too much.
I get what you mean, and I believe that maybe your high desire for peace, maybe indicates that you have a belief that going the other way will actually be detrimental. When in fact going the other way will bring you more peace, because it's by dealing with the challenges and the source of the problem that more peace arises. So it really is the negative beliefs that make you think, make you believe that going the other way is the wrong road, and that's what beliefs do, they trick us. But actually going the other way is what brings you more of what you actually want.
Yeah. No, that
So
tracks.
being open rather than sweeping things under the
What you
carpet.
resist persists, and so if you're resisting something, it will keep happening.
Yeah.
For me, fear is simply a messenger. False evidence appearing real. Sure, we've all heard that. But when a piano is out of tune and you're playing the piano and then that one key is out of tune, that's a message to tune the piano. It's the same thing for our lives. As soon as we go through an experience, first of all, fear paralyzes us to do what we need to do and actually create more happiness for ourselves and more peace for ourselves. But when we experience fear, instead of seeing it as a bad thing, which most of us do, we need to see it as a message. It's simply a message to tell us that what we're believing about ourselves in the situation in this exact moment is false. It's not true. And so that's why that fear is there. It's to tell us to, hey, take a pause, look at the belief. What are you believing about this right now? Are you sure that that is actually an accurate reflection of reality? And we'll find most of the time, no, it's never. It's simply an assumption. But it's never an accurate reflection or fact. And so if we can find the courage to, first of all, have that self-introspection and do it anyway, we realize that the thing we were fearing the most has the least chance and the least probability of actually happening. And then we confirm to ourselves that actually, yes, this is the right way to do it, is to actually deal with the fear head on. And like a postman at your door, he knocks once, you don't answer. He will knock twice, you don't answer. He'll knock 3 times and you don't answer, he will break the door down.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same for our fear. It grows and grows and grows the more we don't address it.
Yeah, that's very interesting perspective, because in fact what you're saying is that fear is not necessarily a bad thing here. It's just a signal for you to
Just a
tune your
signal.
piano.
Exactly, to tune your inner core beliefs. That's really what it's about.
Awesome.
That's amazing. What would be a fast tip for someone who's watching who's like, yeah, Shannon, I agree with you. Like, I'm like that. What would you say as a fast tip for changing your state from fear into action or
Again,
overcome?
it's about neutralizing, and I've got a 3-step process. All right. So the first step is to state your fear. All right. That's something we don't often do. We even afraid to look at the fear. I'm afraid that I will not get this job. I went for the interview yesterday, but I am somehow silently afraid that I won't get this job, and this is eating me. It's making me stressed today. I'm not able to enjoy my kids. I'm not able to enjoy my food. First thing, state the fear. I'm afraid to not get this job. As soon as you state that fear, like, okay, that's all it is. All right. Second step, which is the hardest step, is to tell yourself the magical 2 words. So what? All right. So what? You've done your best. You've done your best. And the third step is to positively reinforce your preferred outcome. I will get this job. This is phenomenal. If I don't get it, I'll apply somewhere else. If I don't get it, I'm not meant to be there. I trust in the flow of my life. Right? Of course, these are affirmations that come with time and with personal development, but that 3-step, stating the fear, telling it the magical words, so what, if it happens? Because as soon as you accept that it's a probability and it's a possibility, it loses its energy. The only reason why it has energy and so much intensity is because you're afraid to even look at it. You're afraid to even acknowledge that it's a possibility. But as soon as you do, it immediately loses its power. And then when you positively reinforce what you actually prefer, it neutralizes everything.
Yeah.
And then you move on, you keep carrying on,
Yeah. And why do you say, so what is the hardest of the 3?
Because people are not willing to accept that fear may come to pass. But the weird thing is that when you don't accept that it may come to pass, that's when you create for yourself the greater degree of probabilities that it will. But as soon as you accept that it may come to pass, that's when you reduce its probability to a drastic level, where it's close to impossible that actually will happen. And if it does happen, if it by miracle does end up happening, what you actually really was fearing, you already accepted it, so you're ready for it.
So you're kind of managing your expectations.
Absolutely.
So that if the worst case scenario happens, you're not like
you already accepted it, and you may even have made a plan in your mind as to, okay, if it happens, then I'll do that, or I'll do this, I'll find a solution. You become solution orientated instead of just shying away from it, and then it happens and you're just taken by shock and you're paralyzed.
Actually, don't you think that this is a pessimistic approach more than the approach that would be typically taken by someone who's positive?
Yes, well, the usual approach by someone that's positive in this circumstance would actually be inauthentic, because they would potentially lie to themselves by saying, no, this is not going to happen. But as soon as you look at it, I wouldn't say it's a pessimistic. It's just natural. This is what's happening. You're just open to actually looking at what it is. It's actually an authentic way of looking at your life.
Normalizing the situation.
Just normalizing the situation instead of shying away from it. Pessimism would be actually shying away from it and not wanting to look at it. But looking at it, that's a positive thing, because then you're integrating that within your life. You're actually accepting it. And as soon as you accept it, that's when you can transform it. Like we said, you cannot change what you do not own.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
This whole conversation is quite profound, and I think that it's come at the perfect time, because I think a lot of our listeners and our students in particular are really looking within, and really we're encouraging our students to question themselves. But they say, well, I go home and my parents will be still entrenched in their upbringing and their beliefs and things like that. So I think this is going to be extremely helpful for people to start as a springboard to dive into this kind of thing.
Absolutely.
I was wondering if someone is really intrigued by this conversation and they want to kind of deepen their look into themselves and start to, blow away the clouds that are keeping them perceive perceivingly unhappy. Where would you suggest these start to look like? What kind of research did you do? Like what kind of things did you bring into this?
The main tool I would highly recommend is meditation.
Okay.
Meditation is really what has changed my life personally. I would describe meditation as a non-meditator walking into a maze, face on. You cannot see what's around you. You just have walls. You don't know where you are. As soon as you sit down and you meditate, it's as though you're actually lifting above the maze and you're seeing everything for what it is. When you go into a meditative state, the clarity that you experience in relation to your life becomes really profound. Having clarity naturally drives more positive decision making, which of course drives more happiness, more energy, and that snowballs the more you do it. The more you actually create a life where even when challenges or difficult situations arise, you're not only able to deal with it, but you actually thrive through it. You use it positively and you move forward instead of being crippled and paralyzed by it. So the only free resource I would advise anybody watching this is to give meditation a shot. And look, there are many, many different types of meditation. I'm not saying that you must go on a mountain and be there for an hour. Not at all. Look, literally in traffic, you could be meditating with eyes open simply by focusing on your breath. Because a lot of the times we're always in our monkey mind. The human mind thinks about 75,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts to think about. And so through meditation, we become way more in control of the thoughts we think. Because we're not the thoughts we think. We are the observers behind those thoughts. So when a thought arises, when we actually meditate and we have the ability to use our concentration in the way that we prefer, if a thought arises that we don't prefer, we can simply let it go, just like a cloud passes through the sky. But if we don't meditate and we don't understand that we have the power of concentration, the power to choose what we think, every thought that will come up, we will buy into it, we'll believe it, and we'll follow it. And that can lead to detrimental experiences thereafter.
I love what you were saying there about as an observer. It's like what you're saying is we are the sky, not the cloud.
Exactly. That's it. The clouds are simply the thoughts and the emotions we feel. Yeah. And so meditating really makes you realize that you are the sky. It makes you know that you don't believe it, because for me, belief is one thing, but knowing is beyond. So you really know because you feel it. You're there. When you're in that meditative state, it just feels good. It feels great. It's really helpful. So meditation would definitely be, and exercise, of course. And like I was saying, meditation there's not just one way to meditate. There are many ways that you could practice meditation. There are walking meditations, running meditations. You could literally sit on a chair and stare at a tree, whatever works for you, However, I would say adapt the meditation to your lifestyle instead of trying the other way around, because then it will be a bit more difficult. You don't need to force yourself to be there for 30 minutes, trying not to think. In fact, it's not about not thinking. Thinking happens naturally. It's about becoming the observer behind those thoughts whilst you're doing it.
Do you have any ideas of how to get your children, to get our children into that kind of thing? How do we encourage our children to develop a meditation practice? Because they're starting fresh, and if we can get them to do this, I think it would set them up for life. How do you do it with your little kids?
Absolutely. Well, I haven't really. They're still quite young, my kids. They're 3 and 2. But I believe that it's from 4 or 5 when there's a bit more cognitive awareness. There's a lot of research actually on meditation for kids and the incredible benefits that kids experience through meditation. And so there's a lot of research out there to teach parents how to involve their kids into meditation, whether that's to gamify it or to make it fun, or start small, like literally 30 seconds, maybe before each meal. Nothing religious, but simply just being grateful for the meal and actually just focusing fully for 10 seconds on expressing gratitude for the meal. All of those little things start to really form a habit of being able to focus our concentration where we prefer it, as opposed to being the victim of our thoughts. And by victim, it's a big word, but you know what I mean.
Yes, it's helpful. Great.
So I wanted to talk about another cloud, which is anxiety.
Yes.
So if someone is anxious by nature, they tried meditation, they tried the breathing, but then it goes back to, ruminating around the situation and being anxious naturally. What would your advice be?
So then it comes back again to the cloud, because anxiety is the cloud. The clouds are happiness, right? The cloud is simply our beliefs. That anxiety is there because you're believing something about yourself in relation to the circumstance in the future that is making you feel this way, because it's not true for you. It doesn't sit right with who you know yourself to be at your core. And so stress, I tend to think about stress as, things that have happened in the past, and anxiety things that are going to happen in the future. And what I would suggest is, again, to go through the three-step process, just like fear, because anxiety is an offshoot of fear, and it really is simply understanding that the belief we have about the situation right now is just not serving us the way we think it should. And there's a question that we could ask ourselves to get to that realization, to tap deep into that subconscious, to bring that awareness and that information to mind. And that is, what would I have to believe about the situation and myself that would make me feel this way? And when we ask ourselves this question, naturally we get the answer and we get the information. And the fun thing is, when we get the answer, we're like, that makes no sense. Why would I believe that? All of our negative beliefs makes no sense. That's why they hide from us, is because they know that if we discover them, we will naturally eliminate them because they make no sense. As human beings, we don't hold on to things that make no sense. We don't walk into Super U and buy all of the things that we don't need. We simply go to the things we need. Yeah. And it's the same thing for our beliefs and our lives. We wouldn't hold on to something that actually makes no sense.
And actually, in your experience, because you've dealt with a lot of people, is there hope for someone who's anxious to change his personality trait into someone who's, less anxious and happy and, yeah?
I wouldn't even call it hope. I would say there's 100% degree of probability that they can.
Okay.
There is nothing stopping anyone from making a change. Maybe that's a bit nuanced from me. I'll say 99.999%, because there's always those, very, very rare cases. But for everybody watching this, anyone can change their lives at any moment. They simply need to be willing to do it. There is the quote that says, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? It just takes one, but the light bulb needs to want to change. So it's the same thing for us as people. We need to want the change. We need to understand that making the change is what will bring us what we want, which is happiness and fulfillment and joy and experience a life that we prefer. And then if we realize that, then we will work towards that change. It's just like someone going to the gym. There is 100% guarantee that if you go to the gym, eat right, and you repeat doing that over and over again, and you stay consistent, you will change. Your body will adapt. It's science. It's the same thing for that. We don't know how long it will take. It's different for everybody, but it's the same thing for this as well. It will work.
And you said something at the beginning when you defined happiness for you, inner happiness, and you said it's about being grateful in the morning and thankful at night. So on that theme of being grateful, do you think that gratefulness comes as a result of being happy, or being grateful actually leads to happiness?
Both. I would say it's both. If you're grateful, you realize how blessed you are, and that naturally brings in happiness. And if you're happy, you're naturally grateful as well. So it works both ways. Gratitude is really important, especially for kids, to be able to teach kids to be thankful. My wife has a lovely story she tells our kids before bed about thankfulness. She tells it, so I won't be able to say it, but it really just embodies the idea that thankfulness and gratitude is what makes it all worth it, because we don't often take time to actually realize where we are and what we've done and where we've come from and all the things we've created for ourselves and our families. And so even being grateful for the smallest of small things, that naturally brings in more happiness and is a great way to generate these emotions for ourselves. Yeah. So there is one rule I live by, right? And that is a rule that I was taught and that I like to share with people if they're open to it. So you've asked me, is there anything I want to share with people? Yes, there is one emotion in particular that we call excitement. That energy is not random. We feel excited about things because, and that's, again, coming from a pretty spiritual point of view, so no offense to anybody, but that's, my own belief is we are not just these human bodies and this brain. We are much more than that. For me, consciousness is the greatest mystery of science, whereas we think that consciousness is generated through our brain and our neurons. I would say it's the other way around, is all of this is generated through consciousness. And so I believe that we are spiritual beings first, as before being human beings, as opposed to human beings that could be spiritual beings. And so taking that into consideration, I believe that we have some guidance always from our own higher minds and higher selves, as I would call it. And so for me, the energy of excitement is not a random one. In fact, that is how I've actually written a short book about it called The Formula, which is a formula for life. If you're lost, if you're unsure of what to do, if you're unsure of where to go, simply list on your 5 fingers the 5 things you could be doing in the next moment and choose the one that has the greatest degree of excitement. because that is when you will have the most energy, the most clarity, and the most joy to do these things. And then once that's done, repeat. It sounds easy, but it's very difficult because we always have beliefs that make us doubt ourselves, that make us stop ourselves, that paralyze us from taking action on what excites us. A lot of the times you will have people, my dream is to be a singer, my dream is to do this, my dream is to do that. But let's be realistic, I can't make money through this. What is that? That's simply a belief, right? But if we really start to inquire into that and we take little actions, we realize that it actually can support us. If we are being supported doing what we don't actually prefer, who's to say we're not going to be supported doing what we actually love? That's when we'll have the most energy. That's when we'll give the most to ourselves. That's when we'll be of service to others. Everyone is unique in this world. Everyone has a unique gift to give. And by following our excitement, that is how we can tap into that gift and give it. And so my only recommendations for those watching is follow your excitement as much and as best as you can until you can take it no further with no insistence or expectation on the outcome, and then repeat.
So on that one, no, that's wow. Just thinking, I mean, if I'm a dad and I've got 3 kids, and my not that it's
great
the case,
example,
but let's say my excitement, my dream is to be like a Hollywood star.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Clearly, there's things that I have to let go, to be able to move myself to LA and train and whatever.
Let go of me and the kids.
Ah.
So that's the belief. The belief is that I have to do all these things. I have to go.
But if you have to pursue my excitement,
sure.
Is that what I do?
Sure.
Is that what I need to do?
Part of the formula has integrity built within it. Integrity means taking responsibility and ownership for where you are, what you've created for yourselves. If you're a father, leaving your kids is completely out of integrity.
Okay.
Right. Taking responsibility for where you are is part of integrity. And so following your excitement as best as you can until you can take it no further with integrity and no insistence on the outcome means that you actually do your best with the resources you have. And you will find that life will support you more and more to actually, if that's what's relevant, to actually do the move to LA with your family, right?
Yeah.
So it's not about taking the big move immediately and discarding everything else and just following your excitement, because you'll turn around very quickly and realize, okay, no, this is not going to work. So really doing so with integrity in your heart and taking responsibility and ownership for where you are is how it happens. And it's a practice. It's something you build every single day. You may be wanting to be an actor and that's your dream, and you see this new seminar in Mauritius about acting, and they teach acting, and so you choose to act on it. You buy the ticket. Most people will be like, no, it's too expensive. I can't. Yeah. You choose to go there. You somehow meet a producer that takes you under his wing. He lives in Mauritius for 2 years, so you're able to be here in Mauritius. You're able to learn the tricks of the trade from a professional from there. There are circumstances that happen that we can't foresee, which actually will take us ultimately where we want to be. But it's also not arriving at a destination and being happy. It's realizing it's the process that matters.
Yeah.
It's the process of taking each step with a full heart.
But don't you think also that people they dream, but they don't pursue it, because most of the time you're not going to be the footballer that will, be in Liverpool or, Manchester United. And therefore you kind of go, let's be realistic, just like you said.
Yeah. Most footballers, I believe, that are in Manchester United or Liverpool didn't start out saying, I'm going to be in Manchester or Liverpool. They're like, I'm going to play football to the best of my ability because that is what I love doing. Okay. And by doing that, that's how they came there. They didn't expect to do that. It just happens, right? So it's the same. If we have a dream that says, I'm going to be the next president of the United States, ask yourself why. Why do you want to be the next president of the United States? Is that more of an ego thing, or are you really wanting to serve? Because if your goal is really wanting to serve, you will do it regardless whether you're the president or not. Yeah. You will naturally serve, and that will take you where it needs to take you. But coming down to the initial intention and the core intention of why you want to do what you do is how you tap into that. Yeah. It's not about the idea of, I want to be this. Why do you want to be that? It's because I want to be of service. Then just be of service. Yeah. Start small and do it.
Right. So it's not the ultimate position.
No, like I said, it's not the destination. It's the process.
But it's and it's the skill
it's the journey.
Yeah, it's the journey.
That's the journey.
That's cool. I wanted to ask you something a little bit more about the following of the excitement that you were mentioning. I was thinking, there are times in my life where I've felt excitement about the idea of something, and then I do follow onto those things. But then the excitement pitters away, and then I feel like, I've generated there's certain momentum. Do I keep it going? But then it seems like life is saying no.
That is
but I'm
such a
pushing.
great question. I love that question, and it's a question that you know I get often. Why we do what we do, we often think it's for a particular reason. So you started this initiative, right, to get to B. That's in your mind. That's what drives you. That's the vision that gets you excited to go and take action on doing that. But then you take action and you arrive at a point, you're like, actually, I'm no longer excited about this. What do I do? Then you have your mindset of like, well, I can't give up. I'll fail. But when we realize that it's not the destination, it's the journey, we realize that every step we take brings new information to us, which is useful to our life, to moving forward. We don't realize, but a lot of the times when we take action on something, thinking it's going to be something big, that's just a thought. But ultimately, it's the process and the information we get and the experience we get when taking those steps that really matters. And so when you take action on your excitement, a lot of the times it's not for what you think it will be. It's just to teach you something or to show you something or to make you meet someone that will ultimately plug in with the other excitements that you have, which then could eventually come up to what you had thought initially. But that's something I've also learned, is that, you know, I simply take action with no insistence or expectation on the outcome. It's our expectations that, you know, trick us into believing we should have done that, we should have been there, or now I don't really feel this excitement, and so, you know, I'm feeling like a loser. But it has nothing to do with that. We've actually learned something that will be of great value to us moving forward. And so that's why I say you take action on excitement until you can do it no longer, which means you're either no longer excited or you have no ability to take action on it, and you repeat the process. List the 5 things that are most exciting to you. And
that's okay to let go of something that you were excited about.
Absolutely.
Like a business or
it's actually needed.
Activity.
If you don't let go, you cannot move on. Your role is to move on by taking the information you've gotten and the lessons you've learned along the way to create the next step. You know, we often take step 1 thinking we need to get to step 10. That's what step 10 looks like. And on step 3, we're like, ooh, I don't actually want to go on step 4. Don't take step 4, you know. Take the step 4 that's next to it, which feels more exciting, because that's where the path is never just a straight line. It's it wiggles a little bit. And so if we're able to follow that thread, then we'll always get to where we want to be. We'll always be where we want to be, essentially.
How would you say to combat the question that, or the comment that maybe someone is thinking, yeah, but isn't that kind of selfish to just follow the most exciting thing? Like, what if I have responsibilities and things?
So it taps again into what Rishi just said with regards to ownership and responsibility and integrity with who we are and what we do. It is not selfish, because I believe a lot of people will say, a lot of people don't understand or don't feel that they can truly fully love themselves, that they need to love others before they need to love themselves. Loving yourself fully from an authentic point of view is not selfish, it's needed. When you're on a boat and you have your family that you love dearly and everyone falls off the boat, somehow a big wave comes and everyone falls off the boat. Most people will go to their family and try and push them up on the boat. But if you simply get on the boat yourself first, quickly, you have so much more grip to take everybody out of the water so much faster, so much better, and so much easier. It's the same thing with self-love. The more we love ourselves fully, the more we can actually offer that love to everybody else. The less selfish we actually become. So the thing with excitement, the more we can follow our excitement and really create the life that we prefer, that's how we can actually be of service to everybody else. I don't believe in random circumstances. Everything happens for a reason. And so we are all interconnected. And when we really truly embody who we are deeply, truly, and follow our excitement and create things for ourselves, we naturally enable others to do so as well, because we lead by example. When someone sees you following your excitement and doing what truly happens and it works for you, that, well, if it works for them, it can work for me. Great, let me try. And it's just a snowball effect. So for me, it's the furthest thing from being selfish. In fact, selfishness for me is not actually doing what you prefer or not being able to give the gift you're willing to. You know you can give because you're afraid of how people may perceive you. That's selfish. When you have something to give and you're not willing to give it, that's selfish, because you're depriving the people that actually could use it from receiving that information and that gift. So
Ashley,
yeah.
We could listen to you for hours.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's been amazing having you on the podcast, and I'm sure that our listeners as well will agree with me.
Thank you. It's been great being here.
Yeah, and so we can only wish you, to carry on, continue
Thank you.
what you're doing, because you're truly making a positive change in our world. Mauritius is lucky to have you.
Yes.
And
I'm lucky to have it.
Yeah, so thank you again.
Thank you very much, Rishi. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, everybody who's watched this. I'm really happy to have been here. I can only wish you guys the best as well in your podcast. You guys are, you felt excited about doing this podcast, and here you are. You're being of great service. You're providing this information to people that actually need it. So thank you very much for having me and for doing this. And I wish you all the very, very best moving forward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The sun will shine. It never fails to rise.